Hello, everybody. Wild Man Z here. Merry Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. Actually, it's Christmas Day, but it's early evening. I was just going upstairs and I found some comics that I bought about 2 years ago from a local barber shop. There's a barber in one of the towns near me, a town called Rocky Point on Long Island, New York. He sells old comics, and the gentleman there, barber, has bins. They're usually $1 or $2. This was behind the counter. It was a little bit more. It was on the order of the low tens of dollars. But I thought it was a good deal. It was Avengers #9, original copy. It's not in great condition. It has some scratches on the cover and whatnot, but it's perfectly good to read. And I've actually never read this issue, either in any reprint or original form. This came out in '64. I was born in '67, so this was before I was born. I never read. Marvel used to reprint comics before they started doing all these epics and all that. They did reprint. They call it like classic Avengers, classic X-Men. I never read this, and so I knew just casually the origin of Wonder Man, but this was really cool. It involves always you got the nefarious Baron von Zemo. He was big time Avengers villain in the 60s and 70s. That's the Enchantress, and that's her crony, the Executioner. They're as Guardians. Of course, Zemo is a Nazi. I always wondered about the mask. I think it's actually glued on his face. That's in his time period. Stan was really infatuated with like super glue. When I was a kid in the 70s, I remember there was a craze. We always had Elmer's glue, but then they came out with crazy glue, and they show a guy hanging off a steel girder with it, and like it was like the most incredible thing that you could glue like pieces of steel together, or glue your weight training equipment together, or something like that. Because we really had crummy glue before crazy glue. Of course, when we got it, the big warning was don't get it stuck to your hands. You'll get your fingers stuck together. And I think that's how, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's actually what happened with Zemo. The other guy who was a big glue character in Marvelverse was Paste Pot Pete, who later became the Trapster. His whole shebang was being really good with glue. Well, anyway, this is the first issue of Wonder Man. He starts off as sort of tentatively a villain, not really though. And I forget all the details of the story. I read it when I got it about 2 years ago. I'll reread it again. It really wasn't that memorable. It's just that it's a really classic old issue. Who did the art? I think it was Dynamic Don Heck. Of course, it was written by Stan. Stan wrote everything in that period. Here's the opening page. Really cool. There's a close-up of Zemo. It says here, sensationally written by Stan Lee. Of course, Stan Lee's writing about himself. Superbly illustrated by Don Heck. He always calls him Dynamic Don. It says selectively inked by Dick Ayers. He was a good inker. And then I like what it says here. It says sufficiently lettered by Art Zimick. And it's always funny because like Stan always says how important the lettering was, but he totally disses Artie Zimick all the time. I think it must have been his friend. That's why he always let go like that. Another thing I want to show you here, why I love the old comics, is the old ads. Now that they're doing the facsimiles, they are keeping the ads in there, but when you buy things like the omnibuses and the epics, they don't have the ads. And I really love the old bodybuilding weight training ads. This was in the old days when bodybuilding wasn't so heavily associated with things like steroids and egotistical guys and all that. And it was just really, it was novel at the time. Not everybody went to the gym. There was like 1 or 2 gyms in the area. And when you see a muscular guy, we said a muscle man back in the old days, it was kind of a marvelous thing. We didn't have YouTube, and now you got 1,000,001 guys, Mike O'Hearn and, C.T. Fletcher and all these workout guys, and a lot of pro bodybuilders have things. And in the old days, if you saw a muscular guy, it was a marvelous thing. So when you saw him in a comic and you're a kid, you really, it was really influential and for you. But look at the really cool art by Dynamic Don. Is showing you a close-up of Cap, thinking about Bucky back in the day. This was still in the day. I think we have here a picture of Donald Blake. I don't know if they keep this going anymore, but in the back in the old days, he would have immortal guys as Dr. Donald Blake. He was lame. He carried a staff, like a wooden stick, that when he would tap it, he would become Thor. And it was always very ambiguous, like whether he was like kind of like a Clark Kent Superman thing, where it's really the same person, or if he truly was like two people, because Don Blake really bore none of the characteristics of Thor in terms of personality, let alone physical ability. But really cool, back in the day, it was always about hitting you with some kind of beam of radiation. This is not long after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nuclear energy, nuclear weapons are a new thing, unfortunately, in the world. And so, Stan was always having his characters get some form of radiation, would be cosmic, gamma, alpha, whatever. Of course, the first outfit he wore was really cheesy with the W, green motif. Never really works. I've always noticed that the villains tend to favor green more than heroes, which is funny because green is associated with the verdancy of life and so forth. But in comic books, they always throw villains in a green color, heroes more in blue and red and things like that. I'm not really sure why. Here's another bodybuilding. You can you can learn the Dynaflex techniques of Mike Marvel. Not sure who that guy is. Years later, I was working at a gym locally near my house where I'm at right now in Long Island. I stay in Long Island and Vermont. And one of my buddies, who was older, I was like teenager, he was like early 20s, he became the DP gym guy. He would be in the comics and in the workout magazines. And it was really cool to be in a gym with a guy who, I'm still reading comics, but now I got one of my buddies in the gym who's he's the muscle guy in the comic books. Don't remember all the details of the plot, but Power Man was really, really powerful. Wonder Man, he's going toe-to-toe with Thor here. I think it's implied he has about equal strength to Thor, certainly not the skill set, certainly not the control of weather. On a good day, Thor would beat him. Used to love getting the old comics when they would put ads in for other comics that were out or coming up. Didn't have a lot of money as a kid, but always wanted to get every single issue I could get. I read mostly Marvel, and I'm wearing a Superman shirt right now, which should tell you I didn't have a lot of money. I started with Marvel, so I stuck with them all through my childhood and teen years. But I tell you what, now that DC's coming out with, I think it's called DC's Finest or something like that. It's a collection of older DCs. I'm going to start getting into them because I think they're great too. It's a different beat, but I love old comics, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then around the 90s, somewhere in there I didn't like the new format. Not a lot of text, a lot of super big illustrations, some of them not very interesting, big feet, big hands, everything was, I don't like the Texiera, really big hands, funny features. I like, comic books where you have classic, proportions of the characters, where they still look human, just very muscular. Here's another. So that was Avengers number 9. Here's Avengers number 10. This was on sale. I think I spent about $50 on this, so it's in good shape. I'll pull it out though, because the comics to me are meant to be read and they're fun. It's about the breakup of the Avengers. So we had a classic team here. Let's just take a good look at the cover again. You had the original team was not Captain America. He came around issue 5. Was Wasp and Giant Man. And I always say her first because she always was ignored. Thor, Iron Man, and the Hulk. The Hulk leaves really quick, like issue number 2 or 3. He's out of there, always coming back and forth, usually as antagonist. But then around issue 5 or so, they pick up a Captain America. He was frozen. Submariner had something to do with the story. I've read a reprint of that. I do not have that original. That's actually a very expensive original. Let's pull this out carefully. I did read this really quick when I got it. Again, not in great shape, but I'm older, and hopefully when I'm about to leave this earth, I'll still be able to go back and look at a couple of these issues in the nursing home, wherever the hell I'm at. But, here's Mike Marvel again. Check him out. There he is. He's back in it. They hit you with the muscle ads all the time. They merely, you're looking at the pictures of the athletic bodies, the muscular bodies of the heroes and the villains, and then you're seeing the muscle ads with nice physiques. They weren't overdone. So here we go, another cover, a splash page here, really cool. Cap always doing some super athletic move. Guy's got really no powers, but he's just super athletic. And I think in the movies now they have him super strong and all this, but back in the day, he was just like an ultimate athlete. He kind of had the fighting skills of I guess in boxing these days, like Usyk, and as fast as Usain Bolt, and could do gymnastics like a Olympic level gymnast and so forth. And karate, karate was a new thing. He would talk about, I've got karate methods, and that was always a huge deal. Somebody knew karate. The shield, he never used a gun or anything like that, but he was zinging that shield that was super strong. But he didn't have really any superpowers. He was kind of maybe in DC, I think the guy's name is Triathlete, who's got he's as fast as the fastest man, strong as the strongest man. And think about it, if you were as strong as Eddie Hall, you could deadlift 12, 1,500 pounds, whatever he does, something ridiculous. And you're as fast as, let's say, Usain Bolt in his prime, and you could fight like, box like Usyk and do martial art like a top, I can't think of a top guy, like, let's say Bruce Lee back in the day. You'd be pretty much just like a freaking superhero. I mean, you put all that together, you're pretty freaking tough. And it's, when I see a guy who can deadlift like Eddie Hall over 1,000 pounds, that's pretty damn close to being like a superhero. It's amazing. But, again, he says here, story superbly written by Stan Lee, art adorably drawn by Don Heck, and I got to be careful because his cover's about to fall off, inked by darling Dick Ayers, and it said lettered by stalwart Sam Rosen. So he didn't diss Sam Rosen as much as he did Artie Simic. I'm going to be real careful flipping through this bad boy because it is, it's if the cover falls off, the cover falls off. But this is where Captain America. We have a pinup here. Check out the pinup real quick. Cap, and so I love the just the classic patriotic Captain America before all the BS. We always have jingoism and all that these days, but back in the day it was just good old patriotism. And wow, you could get $18.95, which was quite a chunk back in the day. You could get an adorable squirrel monkey sent to you. Now, I don't know how the hell they did that back in the day, but I ordered sea monkeys. That was about all I got. They were brine shrimp. That blew me away. But they will get you from the Animal Farm in Miami Beach, Florida. Boy, this had to be borderline illegal. About 12 inches high. They eat the same food as you do. They even like lollipops. That's what it says. Simple to take care of, not really. Train, hell no, you're not going to train a squirrel monkey. You get a free cage, a free leather collar and a leash, free monkey toy, and instructions for $18.95. That monkey probably cost you about $2,000 these days. It's crazy. I have no idea where the hell they had selling monkeys for $18.95. Probably a toy monkey. My father one time was in Southeast Asia. I forgot if it was Vietnam or Cambodia. This was after the war. He was over there doing business. And he was in this hotel room, and it was like just infested with bugs and stuff. He was doing business, but he wanted to be a cheapskate. And he stayed in some rat hole place, even though he had money. But he remembered there was an ad in a magazine. I don't think it was comic book, like Men's Life or whatever it was, and it said for $5.99 or something. It was like a chunk of money. He said this thing will kill every bug, guaranteed, or your money back. So he sent like $5.95. Now this is like 1970, so that's quite a bit of money. Like $30, $40 today. And he got a box in the mail. It was like really heavy. He opened up as a brick. And he said he thought it was so funny that he just like laughed real hard, and he didn't, a brick would kill any bug, I guess. But it was not what he was expecting. Oh, here's a nice picture of the Enchantress. They always have, like, if there's a woman, she'd always be taking on another woman. The Enchantress versus the Wasp. She's always great. She shows up in Enchantress in Thor's comic a lot, and in Avengers. She was, a femme fatale. She's a goddess, the whole bit. She kind of loves Thor, but she was trying to wreck him at the same time. I love these old comics. I know that they play on a lot of stereotypes people find offensive these days. I love the old X-Men where the Irish guy's like top of the morning, and Storm being a black woman is like a goddess, a nature goddess, from the Serengeti. They all the characters that are foreign will use like Nightcrawler said "Good Leben," or I forgot what Colossus says, but it's some sort of Russian expression for shock or awe type of thing, or he'll say something like "by the white wolf" or something. I don't think they say that in Russia, but we just picture people in Russia, like in Siberia, because I think he was portrayed as being like from the Siberian region or tundra, saying like things like "by the white wolf" or something. And I'm Greek, and like I wouldn't be offended if they had like a Greek superhero eating feta cheese and like who like fantasizes about the Acropolis and he goes by Plato or something. I mean, it's done in good jest. And I always think about Stan Lee when he started the first real black character prominence was Black Panther, and like he was a cool guy. He's like a prince. He's in Africa. I mean, yeah, there's lions and zebras running around and things like that. The dude's in Africa. I'm like, I think a lot of times people when they try to put the modern sensibility on these older things, whether it be literature, or comic books, or movies, it's a selfishness of the modern age, and this idea that what we're doing right now in 50 or 100 years will not be looked at as, some of it will be looked at as abominable. It's like, I think about what we do to biodiversity and things like that, the way we just, we are destroying the Amazon and, polluting our environment, and the way we treat each other. If you look on the internet, I watch a lot of workout videos and stuff like that with guys like my old age, like Mike O'Hearn. No, it's off topic, but what the hell, I'm just talking. And, instead of saying like, wow, this guy's awesome, this guy's fantastic, wow, look at him bench or whatever, guys are like, oh, well, he's on steroids, or, oh, he's egotistical, or, oh, I'm like watching this, like, there's so much vehemence and so much keyboard warriorism. Guys sitting here, back in the day, if you didn't say it to the guy's face, you'd face the consequences. And so we live in a sense, I love making videos like this and watching videos, but some of it is ridiculous. And I love these old books because although some people might look at it as corny or some of the statements a little bit insensitive, this was kind of how people were in the old days. People, if you had a Polish friend, you would break on them about being Polish, but you guys would hang out. It's like, I had black friends and Hispanic friends growing up. They sometimes made jokes about white guys, or, sometimes vice versa. We didn't take it too personally. We'd laugh it off, And I'm not condoning racism whatsoever, or xenophobism or homophobism, and things like that, but people need to lighten the hell up. And so that's one of the reasons I love reading older books and reading comic books from when I was a kid, because there's just a levity there that I don't see anymore in things. And there are exceptions, but for the most part, I do not like new comic books. You give me a book like this from the 1960s all the way through the 80s, into the early 90s, and something happened in there just culturally and with the production of comics physically, where even though I was still relatively young, and I'm still young at heart, even though I'm getting older, I just lost it. I just no longer enjoyed buying the majority. There's some things that come out that I like. It's like they're usually not superhero based. I remember years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago, I was getting into this Icelandic, I think it's called the Northlanders or something like that. I haven't read it in a few years. It's really good, and a lot of it's like sci-fi or historical. Age of Bronze, I really like that. That's like a retelling of Greek mythology and the Iliad and the Odyssey, that type of stuff that was done. I really liked that a while ago, but they're not superhero comics. The superhero comics are either like very woke or very dark, or just like everybody's hanging out, drinking coffee, obsessed with like their food choices. They're I went to the gym the other day, and this kid asked me what my micros or macros were, and I'm like, do you want to know what I eat? Do you really think it makes a difference if I'm eating chicken or turkey, or eating sweet potatoes, or eating rice, or how much, I mean, it's like some of the stuff these days is really dumb. And when I see it in the comic books, I'm just like, I know that they're not serious literature, but I see it in serious literature as well. If you want to read really crappy story, just pick up, in general, there's exceptions, the New Yorker or Atlantic, and read some modern literature. Talk about tropes, talk about boring stories, and I write a little bit myself, and I've done decently both technically and with literature. And I'll tell you, I mean, some of these stories are boring as hell, and they have no plot, and they are very predictable, and they're very trying to promote a certain opinion of the author and not just telling a good story. So you want to read something good, pick up some Dumas. I mean, go back 100 years, you'll read, or more, you'll read some pretty good stories. Anyway, that was a little ramble, but I'm just here. It's Christmas, and just looking through my comics and figured I'd make a video. So, Wildman Z, well, I'm going to make some more, I'm on a little bit of a break from my job. I'll make some more books about comics and literature over the next week. I hope you enjoyed it and got to hear my opinion on some things. Maybe you don't agree, but that's fine. That's your prerogative. At any rate, I hope you have a good Christmas or whatever you and celebrate this time of the year, or if nothing at all, just enjoy the beautiful winter. Wildman Z out. Take care.